Today is August 3rd. My name is Anthony Villanueva, and I am interviewing Sylvia Scoggin.
Yeah.
Did I get it? Good. For the Latino Oral History Project, Voces of the Pandemic project at the Center for Latino and Latin American Studies in Northern Illinois University. This project is in partnership with Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. Please know, Ms. Scoggin, that this interview will be placed in the Northern Illinois libraries and shared with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas in Austin. If there is anything that you do not wish to answer or talk about, I will honor your wish. Also, if there is something that you want to talk about, please bring it up and we will talk about it. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. After the questions, you can answer yes or no. The Center for Latino and Latin American Studies wishes to archive your interview, along with any other photographs or the documentation at the Northern Illinois University libraries. Northern Illinois University will retain the copyright of this interview and any other material you donate to the Center for Latino and Latin American Studies at the University of Illinois, Northern Illinois. Do you give the Center for Latino and Latin American Studies consent to archive your interview and your materials at the Northern Illinois University libraries?
Yes.
Do you grant Northern Illinois University libraries the right, title, and interest in copyright over the interview and any other material you may provide?
Yes.
Do you agree to allow Northern Illinois University to post this interview on the internet, where it may be viewed by people around the world?
Yes.
Do you grant the Center for Latino and Latin American Studies consent to share your interview and your materials with Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin for its inclusion in the Voces of the Pandemic Oral History mini project, which will include posting the interview on the internet?
Yes.
We may have some questions in the pre-interview form that have already been filled out. We use that information from the pre-interview form to help in research. The entire form is kept in a secure Voces server at the University of Texas at Austin. Before Voces sends it to the Benson Library and NIU libraries, we would have stripped out of any content information for yourself or your family members, so it will not be part of the public file. Your public file will only be accessible at the Benson Library and NIU libraries. Do you wish for us to share the rest of your interview in your public file available to researchers at the Benson and NIU libraries?
Yes.
On occasion, the Center for Latino and Latin American Studies and Voices receive requests from journalists who wish to contact our interview subjects. We will only deal with legitimate news outlets. Do you give consent for us to share your phone number or your email with journalists?
Yes.
You don't have to. You can say no.
I know.
Okay.
I feel like I should tell my story. Like.
Okay. So can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
And do you see the red light that we're recording?
Yes.
Okay, good. Please feel comfortable to talk about anything you want to talk about. I'm just going to ask you some leading questions. I'd like to start by asking you for you to tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I'm a married mom of 3. I've been married almost 20 years. I'm luckily a stay-at-home mom. I still a stay-at-home mom. I have 2 older children that are immune compromised, so we went in a quarantine before everybody else, probably February of 2020, after my middle son got out of the hospital. My oldest son has autism, So my middle son has Crohn's, and my oldest son has asthma real bad. So the doctors were just like, just go right in quarantine. So I put everybody, and I've been in quarantine since, and I do online schooling, but I was homeschooling before that. So, which is another issue of education and so forth that I was having with my oldest son issues. So,
So at what point did you become aware of the COVID-19 situation in your
and
home?
I tested positive in February of this year, 2021, only because my mother, who does not live with me, but she comes over and helps care for my children when I need her to, if I have to run my other son to the hospital or whatever. She wore a mask here with the kids because she was worried. But she caught a cold, and she said she was fine, and I thought, you know, and then within days, I caught the cold. So then I felt worse like every day. And then finally she admitted to me that she was feeling worse. And I said, we need to go get tested. And we tested. So then it became, who were we around? Who do we tell? And my mother in law also lives with me because she's 83, and I help care for her. And that was when they opened up the churches. And she goes every Sunday. And that was her first time. But she had gotten her first vaccine. So we thought she was fine. Well, there was an outbreak in the church, and then she tested positive after us, but she was asymptomatic. I had no idea. Like, so
You mentioned that your experience in February of 2021, but COVID started to come on the spectrum
oh
back
yeah,
in January of 2020.
right. Yeah. So all the
Back in
news.
back in 2020, how did you become aware of COVID-19?
Okay, so back then it was coming out in the news that people are testing positive overseas in China, and then the president came on and said that, you know, that we would be okay, but it was here, I think January, February of 2020. So like I think February my son got sick and we were in the hospital, and the doctor, when we were leaving, told us to go into quarantine. And that's
That
when
was that was in
February of 2020.
of 2020.
Yeah.
So
So
you
to
told
me, that was like the doctor's telling me it's serious. This has got to be serious. Like,
so is that's when you realized that it was a serious situation
yes.
when it hit home.
Yep.
Okay. And what was your initial reaction when the doctor told you about COVID-19? Did you think it was serious?
I didn't at first, but when it got more into talking to him about it and explaining to me what could happen to my kids, and him telling me I needed to put them in quarantine before the whole country went into quarantine, that's what I knew. I was like, why is he telling me this? And nobody else is,
The reason for that serious approach that your doctor took was because of what?
because of my children's underlying conditions. He was afraid if they got exposed, they
Tell
would.
me a little bit about those underlying conditions.
Yes, my oldest son has severe asthma. He's been hospitalized 3 times through his life. He's 16 now. My middle son has Crohn's disease. He's in and out of the hospital probably 2, 3 times a year. So it, I don't know. The doctor seemed scared. Like worried that if we get exposed, if I could expose my children easily.
What precautions did you take in the home aside from quarantine during this period of time?
Not this time it was crazy. So like we would quarantine our groceries. We would wipe things down. We constantly washing our hands. I don't think I ever left the house unless I went grocery shopping. My husband was, I don't know if you call him an essential worker, but he didn't lose his job, and construction didn't stop. So like he was in and out of the house. I made him shower, when he got home, change his clothes, left his boots outside, like we had no idea how bad it was.
Do you live in a one-family home or is it a multiple dwelling?
I guess it'd be a one family.
Okay, so you have your own entrance and your own backyard, so you didn't have to deal with any neighbors next door.
No, it was hard to have my mother-in-law quarantined. That was the biggest part of all of this because she's very church active and she works out with her friends every other day and they go on walks, and it was hard to tell her that she couldn't, so to not
So
accept us.
did your mother go along with the program or she gave you some pushback?
She gave me a little bit of pushback at first, but I think she realized once the whole country went into quarantine that March that she had to. I mean, like, there was no choice.
Did anyone in your immediate family contract COVID-19?
Just me and my mother-in-law. And then my mother, I don't know if my mom doesn't like my mother-in-law lives with me, but my mother doesn't. My mother got it too. My father got it. My sister got it.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. How did the symptoms manifest themselves in your case?
So at first I thought it was a cold. I got the sniffles and then I was sneezing and then it progressed. My throat started to hurt. Then I was coughing and then I got a really high fever. Like at first it was low, then it got really high. And then I couldn't breathe. Like I had shortness of breath. I had to take breaks to do anything. And I just wanted to sleep. And I had a really bad headache. Like I could not concentrate.
And did you go to be tested? Was it confirmed that you had COVID?
Yes.
Were you admitted to the hospital?
Not at first. I called and they told me to stay home, not to come in. I don't know. At that time, I think everybody was sick. So like the hospitals were just like, if you don't need to come in, don't, So I tried for a couple of days, but it got so bad that I could not breathe. Like I couldn't catch my breath and I was afraid. So I went to the hospital.
Ultimately, you were hospitalized.
Yes.
For how long?
2 days.
2 days? Okay. While you were in the hospital, were you in a general ward or were you in a private room?
I think I was in general,
General
but
ward. So
but I was,
there were other patients with the same condition in the same area.
yes, and we weren't isolated. We were just curtained, you know.
How many were in that room?
6.
6. Okay. And did you have the same nurse for all 6?
Yes.
Right. And what type of protection did the nursing staff use?
She was in full body gear, face mask. I mean, double gloves, double apron, paper pants, everything.
Were you satisfied with the treatment you received in the hospital?
Uh, kind of. I mean, I think I was
You're hedging there, so that means
right.
there's a little bit of doubt somewhere.
Right, like, I felt like I wasn't being listened to, like, like, when they sent me home, like, I didn't feel any better, like, I didn't understand why I was being sent home, and I didn't understand why I was in the same room with others who were worse, I was afraid that I was gonna get worse, and then the variants, everything going through your mind, and you're isolated even though you have people around you, you know?
Did at any time did you feel that you weren't going to make it, that you were going to die?
When I went to the hospital, yes, I felt like this was it. Like this is, you're hearing all those stories. Like you go in and nobody comes out. you know, like my uncle got it early on and within days he was dead, you know, like there wasn't even like, he's sick, we're going to do this. No, he went in and 2 days later he died. So like I was afraid.
Uh, Let's talk about family members.
Okay.
Who was your, let's talk about your uncle. Tell me about his experience. How old was he?
I think he's in his mid 60s.
Was
He
he healthy up to that
no,
point?
he's obese, overweight. You know, he's had heart problems. But I mean, he lived longer than most, I guess I would say, because he was in his mid 60s. He was obese his whole life, you know, having problems, medical problems. Like my father is a little bit obese. Most of my family is a little bit obese. So like, you know, my grand, you know, nobody thought like he would just drop dead, you know.
Let's 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 amplify a little bit about your uncle. He was how old?
He was in his mid 60s.
60s. And did he work?
No,
He worked.
he was retired.
And do you know how he contracted COVID?
I don't actually. I have no idea.
Did he live alone or with family?
With my aunt.
In that household, did anybody else contract COVID besides your uncle?
I don't think so, but I think neighbors did in the building. They live in a building. They live in the same building. They lived in for
It was a multiple dwelling.
yes. So I think
Where was that? What town was that in? What city was that in?
in Chicago on the south side.
So tell me, he contracted. He came down with the symptoms. Was it very severe when he came down with the symptoms?
Yes. They rushed him, I think within 24 hours of him getting sick. They took him to the hospital.
And what happened at the hospital?
As far as I know, I didn't hear anything until he died. Like, I think it was the next day. So he spent almost 2 days. The next day, he was dead. Like my aunt couldn't go see him. She couldn't be there with him. She couldn't say goodbye. We didn't have a funeral. Like I still think about that. Like I didn't get to see my family, you know, and say goodbye, do the ritual, have the food, you know.
Yeah. Not to dwell on this much longer because I know it's uncomfortable for you, but how were his remains uh, taken care of? How were they disposed of? If
I
you
honestly couldn't tell you. I don't even know. Like I don't know if they buried him. I don't know if they cremated him. I don't know. I just know he died and that was it. It's sad to think about it, that I don't know.
anybody else in your family that contracted besides you, your uncle, did your husband contract COVID?
No, he didn't. And I don't even know how he didn't.
Did any of your children contract COVID?
No, they didn't either. They all tested negative.
Any other family members contract COVID?
My mother-in-law who lives with me.
Okay. And when she contracted COVID, was she hospitalized?
No.
So how did you handle that at home with three relatively healthy children, yourself? Um, After you got COVID, I assume that you developed some uh, immune qualities in your system, and your husband has always been healthy. Did you segregate your mother-in-law? Was it your mother-in-law or your mother?
My mother-in-law.
Did you segregate her in the house? Did you quarantine her in a separate part of the house?
Yes.
Okay.
But I didn't quarantine myself.
No, did she go along with the program?
It was hard, but yes. It was more like the kids stayed away from her, you know?
Okay. Okay. So outside of your immediate family, did anybody else contract COVID who passed away besides your uncle?
Nope. But my father, I had to say goodbye to him twice. They thought for sure he was not gonna make it.
So when he made it, when he came through it, did you say hello to him again?
Oh yeah, I think I did. 8 weeks later, I saw him finally.
So your father contracted COVID. Uh, does he live with you, or does he live in the city? Uh, my curiosity is, uh, did he live in a multiple dwelling, or did he live in a single family house?
He lives in a single family house, but it's multi-generational. Like my sister lives there with her son. My two nephews stay there sometimes, some moving it out. There's always someone living there with them.
So tell me about your father's experience.
He had just had heart surgery. Like, they put it off for a year because of COVID.
Open heart surgery?
He had he just needed some nerve endings burnt. He had some blockage. So it wasn't open heart. It was kind of, they used the little lasers and go in, they make a little incision here. So it wasn't too bad, but they waited a year. He was in pain and sick for a while. So they finally did it because he couldn't wait any longer. And
What kind of symptoms did he manifest?
he got sick right away too with a cold, but he got not even a cold, he got the flu. I mean, like, he got sick faster than we did. And so he had just gotten out of the hospital. So my mother exposed him and he got really sick right away. So he ended up right back in the hospital and he spent 8 weeks there, 4 weeks in the ICU. And my mother couldn't see him. That's the first time my mother's ever been away from him. They've been married almost 50 years. Like, it was hard. My mom's calling me every day. What am I supposed to do? They won't let me see him. I'm calling. Nobody's calling me, telling me what's going on. So, like, I'm trying to help her and not think about my father, but that I'm sick, and I'm trying not to get my kids sick, but I couldn't quarantine, so I'm wearing a mask in my own house, around my children, washing my hands, and it just was a lot. And to even think that if he died, I don't know what would have happened to my mother, like, she would just fell apart.
So did anybody in your neighborhood that neighbors, contract COVID?
As far as I know, no.
No?
And I live in a mostly Caucasian neighborhood. They live in a mostly Latino neighborhood. So I don't know if their neighbors did, but nobody around me did. So, like, I don't even have friends that tell me they got sick. It's weird to me because, like, most of my family got sick, but, like, other people are like, oh, we didn't get sick. We go to the bar every weekend. It's like,
So did you get vaccinated?
yes, I have my first shot. I have my next shot due tomorrow, actually.
Is Vaccines were available over a year ago.
Right.
Any reason why you hesitated, or you just didn't think it was necessary?
I hesitated. I even though I pushed to get my parents vaccinated, my mother-in-law vaccinated, my mom wanted to wait for my dad till he was fully
Let's
recovered.
talk about you.
Oh, okay.
What,
For me, I hesitated. I did. Like, I thought I was in quarantine. I wouldn't get exposed. I would be fine. Like, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. And I was completely wrong.
okay. Did other members of your family get vaccinated, like your immediate family?
Yes, both my parents are vaccinated. I don't know about my sister that lives with them. My mother-in-law is vaccinated. I took her myself, so she's completely vaccinated. My husband, I made him get vaccinated with me.
What about your children?
I have to wait. Like, they won't. They want them to get the Moderna. My oldest son has a heart murmur, so they're afraid of the Pfizer. And my middle son has fatty tissue around his liver and heart, so they figured, why not, do the Moderna. So, like, I don't know why the Moderna hasn't been approved because they told me they would get it months ago and they haven't gotten it yet, and I'm afraid, and I'm I don't want to do the Pfizer with them, but at this point, I don't know. I don't want to wait any longer, is how I feel. Like I waited for myself and I got sick.
So how do you feel now that a lot of the restrictions have been lifted? Do you go out of the house?
No, I'm still in quarantine. I'm still doing what I was doing a year ago. I don't leave unless I go grocery shopping, doctor appointments, nothing unnecessary. I mean, like we walk, we take hikes, we bike, but I feel like I'm still at that point. I feel like the whole country is on fire, like, but nobody's doing anything about it. And it's weird because, like, here, my town did not go into lockdown. They refused the orders. They did not close the restaurants. They did not close mandate.
Yorkville just didn't go along with the program.
Nope, they had parties at the bars every weekend.
So, how big is your town? How big, how many
Say about
people?
20,000 people. It's small.
Okay. Did you know if the occurrence of COVID amongst the population of Yorkville was greater or less than the rest of the state?
I don't know about town, but I know county, we were pretty high, like, for this county, because that was the only information I could find online was the Kendall County Health Department.
And so you still don't go out.
No.
You still maintain quarantine in your home. Are your children going to school this coming semester? No. Homeschooling?
Mhm.
Okay. And your husband still works full time?
Yep.
Would you consider your husband to be pretty healthy otherwise, aside
Yeah.
from all this COVID business?
Yes.
So would you say that COVID has impacted you in your ability to interact with family members and neighbors and other community functions?
Yes, because now, like, even my mother would be over here to help me or come see the kids, where she's a primary 24-hour caregiver for my father because he was so sick. He ended up in a rehab facility after he got out. So, like, now it's 24-hour care. I don't see her. I talk to her, and it changed everything. It changed all of our lives. Yeah, and I'm still in quarantine, like, I have no interactions with people, and she's afraid to come over because she doesn't want to get the kids sick, you know.
So you say that your father, after the 8 weeks in the hospital, he went to rehab. Is he still in rehab?
No, he got out a month ago, but he spent 4 weeks there. Like, he could not get up to go to the bathroom by himself. He couldn't shower himself, couldn't feed himself.
So do you wear a mask in the house or only when you leave the house?
Do I do a mask?
Mask.
Oh yeah, only when I leave. When I was sick and I couldn't quarantine from the kids, I did wear it for even a month after I was not supposed to be sick. When I tested negative or whatever, I still wore it because I was afraid.
So how do you think this change in your life is going to be permanent? Or do you think that at some point you may try to go back to pre-COVID living?
I think that it'll be half and half. I think I will still stay with the precautions of wearing a mask outside. I think I will eventually venture out, but will always wear a mask. I feel like maybe not 5 years from now, but within a year, I think I'm still going to be wearing it because I feel like other people are not taking precautions that I should try at least.
Um, Going to you, speaking about your children and the changes in their education, did the Yorkville school board or school facilities, aid your family in any way? Did they make any recommendations, provide any help?
Nope. I
No.
did it all myself. I had to pull my kids. I had to find an online service, and I've been doing it on my own. Because they offered like hybrid, and then they wanted the kids to go back right away and take away the online. And I was just like, I'm on my own. I'm going to do it on my own. Even now, I think they're not even offering a choice. Last year they gave you a choice, but this time they're not. So
So
most
the
kids are
town
not vaccinated. So it's like, why would you? I don't know. I just don't understand.
school board has really not provided you with anything.
Nope. I'm no phone calls, no check-ins, no nothing. They haven't even like to see if my kids are alive or truant or whatever, you know. It's just strange.
Um, let's switch gears a little bit. Tell me about what kind of health care do you have?
I'm on Medicaid, I'm on Illinois state aid. So that was another thing with being in the hospital, of not feeling like I was getting enough care. Like I only saw the doctor once in 2 days, which was weird to me too. But I felt like, was that a factor? You know, like if I had good insurance, would I have been put in a private room? My father, if he had better insurance, he's on Medicaid and he's retired, and you know they have Obamacare to supplement. But like, if he had better insurance, would he have gotten sick? Would he have, you know, gotten the surgery right away and not been exposed? You know, like all of this goes through my head all the time about healthcare. You know, it's hard. I have to fight for everything with my kids. You know, like to get anything approved, it's a fight.
Has, aside from healthcare, has this COVID experience affected members of your family mental health wise?
I think yes. My kids probably being trapped in the house for a year and a half, 2 years now. They don't have many friends left, I guess I would say, because they're, you know, interacting online and just gaming. So I worry about their interaction, their social interactions. And I haven't thought about it for myself, but now that I think about it, it would be nice to have some kind of interaction with people, probably healthy, make me healthier. But I'm just afraid. It's made me afraid. And I know I shouldn't. Even the doctor's like, take it one step at a time, but I'm so afraid of getting sick and dying, and I still have effects. Like I still have shortness of breath. I still have to take breaks. Like I was very active. I dropped 50 pounds before I got sick. I was biking 10 miles a day. I was lifting weights. I was in the best shape of my life, you know, and then I got sick. I can't even do 10 push-ups, you know, and it,
Let's, switch a little bit now to the state of Illinois. Do you think that the state of Illinois did a good job with this COVID pandemic?
I think they did. With I think a governor did a good job with enforcing, and you know, and not listening to the president at the time or other people. He was listening to the doctors and the scientists. But I still feel like, I don't know if it's any fault of their own, it's just systemic racism, but I feel like the Latinx community and the people of color got totally screwed. You know, like um, with healthcare, access to healthcare, testing, vaccines, information in Spanish, you know, like yeah, it just, I unnecessarily, we got hit worse than most people because we're poor, we're brown and black, you know.
What about the federal government?
No, at the time, I think the president was out of his mind, and a lot of people didn't listen to doctors or scientists, and a lot of false information, even from the president and people in Congress, even still today, is ridiculous. You know, like I'm glad we have a new president, but we're behind the ball at this point, you know, and we're trying to catch up and we're not catching up. A new variant comes out, more people get sick, nobody listens, you know, everybody's on masks, and then don't wear a mask. The back and forth is what's driving me nuts, you know.
Sylvia, that concludes my questions. Is there anything that you want to talk about that I haven't touched upon?
I think I pretty much hit it. I was going to talk about healthcare and the Latinx community being affected. What really struck me, because I'm doing a paper right now in my Latin American Studies class, and it is on COVID, was that the average American lifespan dropped by a year, but for Latinx people, it dropped by 3 years. You know, and I just think to myself, like, what if I have grandbabies? What if I miss that? Those 3 years, you know, the wedding, anything. I think about it a lot. It affects me. I think about my parents. You know, luckily they're still alive. Now 3 years, they're gonna die instead of the 3 years I could have with them. So that really shocked me. I'm sorry.
Well, I want to thank you for taking time to share your experiences and your thoughts. You can reach out to me in case you want to add anything. When the transcript is completed, I'll share it with you to make sure that everything is the way you said. If there's nothing else, I want to thank you again on behalf of the CLLAS program at school, and hope we speak again soon.
Yes, hopefully maybe we'll meet in person one day.
Thank you. You have a good day now.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.